afternoon, everyone. I'm Beatriz Rodriguez, Director of the North Carolina AgrAbility Partnership, and the second session today is Aquaponics and Hoop Houses, Mitigating the Risk Through Indoor Production. Our presenters today are John Jamerson, the Director of the Legacy Taste of the Garden and Legacy Farming and Health Group, and Gabriel Martineau, owner and operator of Pangea Farms. Now I'm gonna leave you with the presenters, with John Jamerson and Gabriel Martineau. Thank you.
Greetings, everyone. I am John Jamerson with Legacy Taste of the Garden, also the project director of Legacy Farming and Health and the Life Project. I'd like to thank everybody for taking time out to join us today, and most of all, thank North Carolina A&T AgrAbility and the AgrAbility family for granting us this opportunity to come here. I also want to thank my co-presenter, Gabriel, who will be joining us shortly. And I have the fun-filled opportunity to go and do a presentation of not just explaining all the information that I have the fun-filled ability to share about myself, but also about the Life Project, and then give a short informational presentation on high tunnels. So, and here we go. I'm John Jamerson with Legacy Taste of the Garden. We're out of Indiana. We're known to be the last African-American settlement in Indiana, which is Laos Station, Indiana. This is my father-in-law, Norman Greer, who was represented in the Smithsonian African-American Museum of History and Culture for being for that, and also for the town, Laos Station. Legacy is a family farm operation that was created to pass down generational knowledge and sustainable and entrepreneurial living. Our desires is to help to bring back the knowledge of growing and using fresh produce, and teaching how to obtain a lifestyle in agriculture, entrepreneurship, and self-sustainability. Our goal is to close the gap between local producers and local consumers, which will support the community's vitality. Some of the things that we have been granted was the 2019 SARE grant, the 2501 grant with AgrAbility at Purdue Extension and the People's Foundation. We're also Master Gardeners and Junior Master Gardener instructors. We're knowledgeable of trauma nutrition, and we're part of the Indiana Black Farmers and Indiana Grown. We have a lot of partnerships that we partner with. National Black Farmers Association, we were just at their conference this past weekend, with the Human Agriculture Co-op, with the local organizations as churches and groups and organizations, hospitals, NCOBRA, NCAT, FAMU, and other HBCUs, which we help to train youth in gardening techniques and teach urban garden programs in the inner city. The Legacy Farming and Health Group was formed in 2017. It's a network of farmers from across the nation. We have members in 35 states. We have Zoom meetings on the first and the third Thursday of each month. And we have a collaboration of trying to obtain the resources and help each other. Our Life Project stands for Legacy, Innovation, Farming, and Economics. This is a project that we came together with Chuck Baldwin from AgrAbility and Ed Sheldon and our group. And we came together to be able to reach out and increase the number of African-American farmers in the nation. We saw a need and went to partner together to fill that void. Some of our groups that are with us is the People's Foundation and Chef Joseph, which you'll hear from tomorrow if you take the time to join in. We have Haven Trust with the Little Red Hen, of course, AgrAbility, Pangea Farm, which is Gabe, Legacy Taste of the Garden, and the Master Grow Gang. Our objectives are for socially disadvantaged farmers and veterans. Our desire is to increase the number of socially disadvantaged farmers in the areas of new, youth, urban, and veteran farmers, to introduce access to the USDA programs, to involve participants in the USDA programs, and to increase participation in USDA programs in their grants, scholarships, and loans, and to also provide training in innovative processes and technology. We have outreach programs and training programs. We have workshops that we do, conferences that we do, and networks that we do. One of the networking that we were doing was with an area in North Carolina, Princeville. We were going to help them in their inaugural conference this year. However, due to COVID, a lot of these conferences and networking opportunities weren't able to take place, but we do look forward to working with them in the future and partnering with many others. Now to the Hoop House. These are that we'll be talking about today will be the different growing techniques. I'll be talking about the Hoop House, and Gabe will be talking about aquaponics. So the question becomes, why high tunnels or hoop houses? And the reason why is that the high tunnel, they have the growers have a positive experience. In particular, high tunnels help to extend the growing season and improve the product quality and yield year-round. They also improve farmers' economic stability, improve harvest quality. They reduce some of the disease problems and weed pressures. They also increase the product shelf life and yield and protect the product from adverse weather. Some of the pros and cons of hoop houses. The pros are many farmers like being able to harvest in cooler months and planting early in the spring, crops such as lettuce, spinach, and kale. The other part of it is that the structures in the summer help to improve the growth and production of warm crops such as tomatoes, peppers, and cucumbers. One of the cons of it is that the high tunnels are labor intense, and high tunnel production is vulnerable to a number of weather and disease and pest related challenges. One of the problems, as you can see, the upper picture is a Gothic style high tunnel, which is more of a pointed end. The middle one is a Quonset style, which is a rounded type in diverse weather where you have rain and a lot of snow. The Quonset style tends to collapse, so you a lot of times have to make sure that you got things in place to help with that. So there's a lot of advanced preparation and knowledge that you need to know and additional costs that may come to prevent those issues. The advantages of high tunnels is that it can become the center of your business, of your farm. You can take advantage of off-season markets, such as farmers markets, restaurants, and your winter CSAs. You can also demand premium price. Some of our farmers love to be able to grow early in the season, and normally where we're planting in the ground around April, we have some farmers who already have produce that's ready at the beginning of April. to be sold. And so you can demand a higher premium price due to having that. And you can have year-round income, helps you to attract and keep good workers. As we all know, as farmers, it's hard to get good hired help. And so you want to be able to keep them around, and this can help you with that. And you can grow greenhouse-specific high-yielding varieties. One of the other advantages of high tunnels is that in diversifying your operations, you can experiment with high value specialty crops such as flowers and delicate perennials and berries. You can add a unique or popular product to attract customers to farmers markets or to make your CSA more competitive. And you can add a side revenue stream such as transplant and bedding plant productions. One of the things that we do is in our high tunnels is to grow extra transplant plants and sell them early in the season for people who are wanting to get their plants out early and have something that is already ready to be transplanted in the ground. Another advantage is for new farmers. The high tunnels are an opportunity for new farmers to with limited experience to increase their income as they learn and grow. You can start small and grow from there. High tunnels offer a strategy for maximizing income on limited or marginal ground. These are for individuals who may be in the urban areas. And one of the places where you can get your high tunnel and get assistance for that is through the National Resources Conservation Service, NRCS. And they provide a higher cost share incentive payment for beginning socially disadvantaged veteran and limited income farmers through their EQIP program. You can go to your local farm service agent and ask them about the EQIP program, and they can give you funding to a certain amount. I'm not exactly sure what the amount is in the 1918 farm budget, but I know it's around $7,000 or $8,000 if you max out on the size that you can get and that can take care of a large share of your costs in your high tunnels and everything. And it's a great incentive to be able to do it. And you can get more than one. Most of the time there is a 2-year program that you'd have to join in order to get that. So keep that in mind. And that's one of the benefits of that program. With our program with the Life Project, we do have certain series and programs that we do. We had a Roots in the Soil series with AgrAbility that we had a 3-part series. We'll be moving on to join up with other HBCUs along with AgrAbility. So that work is in production and it's to be determined when that's going to happen. We also have on November 19th, we have a Life Project speaker on our 3rd Thursday that will be coming up. And we also, through this conference, will be having more speakers come on Thursday, November 12th at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. So be sure to join us there. If you want to have more information on the Life Project and some of the things that we do, you can be reached at legacytasteofthegarden.com. And we can also be reached at thelifeproject.com. And that is spelled www.thelifeproject.com. With that, I will pass it on to Gabriel, and Gabriel will continue from here.
All right. Appreciate that, John. Thanks for the introduction. And good afternoon to NCAT Virtual Workshop attendees. I just want to say thanks to North Carolina A&T, AgrAbility, and the Life Project for giving me an opportunity to share my knowledge on aquaponics. Like John said, my name is Gabriel Martineau, and I own and operate Pangea Farms based out of Atlanta, Georgia. One of the areas that I've been focused on over the last 10 plus years is the area of aquaponics. So without knowing everybody's understanding of aquaponics, I'm just going to go over a very high level overview for those that might not be familiar with how aquaponics works and why it might be of interest to those looking to diversify their current farming operations. So basically at a high level, and I'll try not to inundate you with all the technical aspects of maintaining a production system, but the word aquaponics is basically derived from the fusion of two farming practices. You have aquaculture and hydroponics, where aquaculture is the farming of fish. It can be a tank, in the ocean, and open pens. And hydroponics is the production of plants in a soilless environment, so not in the soil. So basically the plant's roots are suspended in nutrient-rich water. So at the very basic form, aquaponics is growing of fish and plants in a closed-loop aquatic system where the fish and the plants are the most visible components. One of the most important components of the system is actually the bacteria that's really the glue that makes everything work in an aquaponic system. Let's see here. So basically, real quick overview, you have your fish. Let me go ahead and give you a little point here. You got your fish here, and the nutrient water, well, basically the input for your fish is the feed. So that's really the only input that you're going to put in here, with some caveats. You might want to add some iron as well. Usually these systems are iron deficient, but basically your major input is going to be the feed for the fish. So the fish create waste in the water, and if you don't filter out that water or replace that water, the fish will die from the toxicity of the ammonia. So basically, you have to find a way to remove the ammonia in the system. So in an aquaponic system, basically, you're going to pump that water to your plants, which are suspended in the water, through a soilless media. So you can have like clay or cocoa coir or some other media that's not going to interfere with your pH of your water. So the roots are going to be suspended in that water, and basically they're going to filter out that ammonia from the water. But like I said earlier, the bacteria are going to play an important role in breaking down that ammonia into a soluble form for the plants. And those are the nitrifying bacteria, and they're pretty much they'll populate your system naturally as the system cycles and gets more mature. So after the water is planted to after the water is pumped to the plants, and it basically returns back to the fish cleaner than it was when it was pumped to the plants. So basically you have like a closed loop system where you're growing two different products. You're growing your fish and your plants in one system, and you're conserving water. The only water that you really need to replace is that which is evaporated. So you're not going to actually dispose of any of the water. You're just going to replace or top off for evaporations. There are some other areas to really look into as far as maintaining the system. Anybody that may have had an aquarium in the past would know that you really need to make sure that your oxygen levels are good, as well as your temperature and your pH. You want to make sure that those areas are being watched very carefully. So in essence, basically aquaponics is like a mini ecosystem where you're hosting fish and plants, as well as the bacteria in a symbiotic environment. All right, so let's... How
are you going to control the temperature? How is he going to keep this?
Somebody asked, how do you control the temperature? Oh, well, I guess maybe we'll answer that at the end. So why aquaponics? So I'm going to tackle this from two different areas. So basically, from the fish standpoint, we're really overfishing our oceans right now at a very unsustainable pace. Right now, our technology is so good that the target species that we're targeting cannot replenish itself quickly enough. So over the years, we've really diminished most of the fish that we're used to seeing on our menus. And according to the FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization, aquaculture is either inland or in the ocean is one of the fastest growing industries. And I'll just show you this slide real quick. The blue area is actually where aquaculture has taken off. And you can see that it's almost even with what our capture production is as far as what we capture in the ocean. So it's going to be really big, a really huge industry in the near future, if it's not so already. From a crop perspective, soilless crops are extremely well suited for indoor growing, where, unused structures. So if you're an existing farmer and you have, say, a hoop house, as John was talking about earlier, or maybe you have a broiler house for your chickens that you're not using, or possibly a barn, these can easily be converted into an aquaponics facility. So I just wanted to give you guys some opportunities to rethink some of your structures that you might have that are kind of derelict or aren't being used, and maybe perhaps use those or revitalize those for something that can produce quite a bit of produce and fish at the same time. So aquaponics, as I was saying, can be placed in really compact spaces to suit your needs. So there's not a one-size-fits-all sort of scenario. You can really tailor these for whatever spaces you have available. In addition, the skills that you develop when you build out and grow and maintain an aquaponic system, you're going to be honing some skills that are going to be in high demand in the near future with regards to indoor food production, because that sector is going to be huge. And if you want to even take it to the next level, NASA and other space programs are going to be needing ideas and expertise in compact growing, efficient growing, sustainable growing, stuff like that. So understanding how these systems works is going to be very integral to the future. Here's another picture of an indoor system. All right, so I was talking about compact space. On the left there, you have a really small, I wouldn't really call that aquaponic system, but they exist. And then also, the next generation is really gonna, the aquaponics really appeals to the next generation as far as, the fish aspect and the plants, and they get to see this and have hands-on experience. So it's really great for the next generations. All right, so what type of fish would you be growing in an aquaponic system? Freshwater fish, pretty much. So the majority of aquaponic systems use freshwater fish. And depending on your setup and your area, some fish species might be better suited than others. So for example, if you're just starting out with a system, you might want to just go with goldfish just to test it out. You're probably going to kill a lot of fish at the beginning. That's okay. But goldfish are pretty hardy. They can tolerate a lot of different environments. So that would probably be the cheapest, best way to get acclimated with the system. As you hone your skills and say you're in a warm environment, tilapia would be the way to go. That's usually the fish of choice for most aquaponic systems, because they're very tolerant of harsh water conditions. They can handle fluctuations in temperature, pH as well. However, if you're in a colder area, say you're up north, you might want to consider perch or maybe bluegill for your system. They tolerate cooler water much better. types of systems. So you have your media bed or grow bed is what that's called. Basically right here you have a bed of clay balls are called hydrogen. And basically the clay balls, say for example, your system shuts down because of an electricity outage, those clay balls will actually retain a lot of moisture and keep your plants healthy until you can get that power turned back on. And basically in these type of systems, the water floods these beds and then drains back out to the fish. One advantage of the media grow beds is that they also act as a mechanical filter. So the solids in your system will get filtered out in these beds and then get broken down by bacteria. And you may even have earthworms in here as well that help break down the waste. There's also on the right-hand side, you have your NFT systems, which stands for nutrient film technique. And basically a thin film of water basically flows through the channels here, and the roots are suspended in the channels. And they absorb up all the ammonia and the nutrients from the water. On the left-hand side, you have a raft system. It looks like basil's growing in that system. And so basically the fish are not actually growing inside the water underneath. The plants are just suspended on styrofoam rafts in this particular instance. And the fish are probably in tanks at the other end of the building. But basically this is a good picture of a good size production system. Growing one crop, it looks like, which is really nice. All right, so as far as indoor structures, we talked about hoop houses in a little bit, and we talked about other structures that we could possibly convert over into growing space. So for example, like a pole barn or a greenhouse. I can see possibly, but well, there's obviously a lot of benefits for indoor structures. I think John mentioned some, but I wanted to talk a little bit about it from a security standpoint. So if you have an indoor grow, you have the ability to have a physical barrier, not only for humans, but for pests as well. And this gives you some increased biosecurity, which is super important now with regards to COVID. So for example, you might have a temperature checker at the door. So anybody who has an increased temperature cannot enter, those kind of things. You might even have some UV light that you can sanitize your shoes with, or maybe have a bucket of bleach that you sanitize your shoes with, or boots with rather. You might have some enhanced air filtration that you have going through that building to minimize, pathogens in the air. So stuff like that really helps protect your system and your environment, as well as the benefits of having increased control over temperature, and you can also manipulate the light as well indoors. Let's see here. So there's some examples here of a greenhouse with artificial lighting, supplementing natural lighting. And I thought it was neat to show the poultry biosecurity measures that they have. I just pulled this off the internet, but it just goes to show how important biosecurity is, especially now with COVID in effect, to make sure you secure your facilities as best as possible. So basically, talking about here's just a couple of slides of some of the projects that I've worked on. The one on the left is actually my personal greenhouse that I built, with the tank in the center there, and then some filtration barrels on the side. And then I'm using the NFT technique, basically having the water pass through the roots in these channels, both on the floor and on the ceiling. So basically I'm using vertical space. So that's another aspect of growing indoors. You can use vertical space as well. So you're increasing your growing footprint vertically. And on the right, believe it or not, that's actually a marine shrimp that I was growing in the system. I was testing this out to see if I can grow marine shrimp in an aquaponics system, and that was pretty successful. So I'm actually working on something like this right now with a 40-foot container where I'm going to grow shrimp and produce on the top as something that can be pretty innovative, and I can put this in an urban setting. So right now I'm working on putting something like this in downtown Atlanta. All right, so if anybody's interested in reading more about aquaponics, this is a really great free resource for anyone. It's online. You can download it. It's pretty big and it's very, very detailed. So it's not for the faint of heart as far as someone who's just starting out. But if you want something that goes really deep in depth with as far as aquaponics on a global scale, from a global perspective, this is definitely a really great resource. And there's my information. If you guys have any further questions or want to reach out, you can reach me here.
Thank you, Gabriel and John.
So the question is the idea of aquaponics to grow both fish and produce to sell? Second question, how long do the fish last before they need to be replaced?
All right, I guess I'll answer that, unless John, you have a better answer. So yes, the idea behind aquaponics is to grow fish and produce to sell. Absolutely. Of course, you're not going to sell your goldfish if you're just starting out, but the bulk of your income is probably going to come from plants or your produce initially, because if you're growing tilapia, say for example, it's going to take about a year for them to grow out. So while they're growing out, you're going to be selling your lettuce or your kale or your herbs or whatever you're growing, tomatoes. So yes, but at the end of that year, that growing season, you're going to want to go ahead and sell your fish. What was the second half of that question there? Something about replacing the fish?
How long do the fish last before they need to be replaced?
Oh, well, depends on how big you want them to get. But, typically I think tilapia, I guess once they get to a pound or so, you can start selling them for fillets at that point. So there's definitely, that's a really good question, because there's definitely a balance that you want to keep with your system. So if you sell all your fish, well, guess what? You don't have any more nutrients for your plants. So you want to have maybe a staggered system where you have some tanks that are, mature fish, whereas you have some more growing in another separate tank, so that the system can continuously grow.
That's all of the questions we have right now, Betty.
Someone asked something about temperature earlier. I think I overheard it on the microphone. Temperature is definitely a challenge in an aquaponic system, as far as keep maintaining constant temperatures. And through my experience, I found that if you insulate your tanks where your water is, that's the best way to maintain constant temperatures. You might need to have a heater of some sort in there. That's going to suck up a lot of electricity, a lot of power. There are some alternatives out there to look into, but insulation is your best bet as far as keeping and maintaining temperature.
And Gabe, I might add, I know with the hoop houses, there are systems that can keep you alert as to what the temperature is in your hoop house. If you want to maintain a certain temperature, I'm sure that same thing applies with the aquaponics.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a lot of technology available for doing that, to alerting you and all that stuff. Yes, absolutely.
How can a non-farmer citizen start with a hoop house or greenhouse the least expensive way?
How can a non-farmer citizen start a hoop house or greenhouse the least expensive way? There are very cheap systems that you can start out with, just to test out with that you can find in Walmart or something there. There's systems that are easily under about $100 that you can, and they're roughly, I would say probably 10 by 10. I've seen them at Menards and other places. You can go to any place that sells growing equipment and plants and things of that nature. And you can find very inexpensive hoop houses there. They're not that sturdy, so they're not going to last too long. The hoop house or high tones that we're referring to, there's normally a run around 30 feet wide, and they can go as long as you want them to go. I've seen some that are 100, 150 feet long. The one we have is around 75 feet. We have a couple of them about that size, but the smaller ones you can get probably 8x8 or 10x10 that run roughly $100.
Okay. Do you see the next slide up? Do the fish reproduce with the aquaponics system, or do you replace the fish?
Yes, the fish can reproduce. They're probably going to need some natural signals to do so. So, for example, a temperature change would maybe indicate to them it's time to reproduce. Something like that. Typically, most aquaponic growers optimize for growth versus reproduction. So they're going to order, say, the fingerlings, which are the really small fish that you grow, the seeds, the fish seeds, pretty much. They're going to ask for all male fish because they grow the fastest. And then there's no reproduction in the system because it's designed for the business to maximize on profit. So typically, if you want to do something like that, you might do it in a separate system so that you can have your own seed stock, and then you can incorporate the new fish into your system. But they very well possibly might and will reproduce in your system if the cues are correct. The temperature cues and the environmental cues are there for them to do so.
Okay, thank you. This was partially answered previously. How expensive is it to get started with a greenhouse or hoop house? But I'm not sure that I heard any, actual figures as to what one might cost. And that's without the the water system and things in it, I believe.
Yes, just for the hoop house in itself, it normally for one the size that I have, that is 75 by 30. It normally runs close to about $8,000 for just the for what you need for that, for the hoops, for the plastic that goes over it, the doors, things of that nature. It's going to run you easily about $8,000. You can find some that are used from individuals who have had them and no longer want them, or are out of business. A lot of times the metal structures are still good. You probably have to replace the covers on them, and you have different covers that different farmers say give you different results. You have your clear covers, you have your dark covers, and your reflective covers, and they all have their own personal benefits for them.
Okay, our thanks to everybody who wrote in the questions. I don't have any more right now. Thanks for the great answers as well. Betty, back to you.
I think we have another question. Let me see. The medium needed without raising the fish. So it'll be just the medium for doing the hydroponics, I think.
Yeah, basically you're talking about hydroponics at that point. So yeah, there's a lot of information and resources and ways to, depending on what you're growing, right? So you're gonna have a formulated synthetic fertilizer that you're gonna put in your water. It'll be very it'll have very detailed instructions on how to grow whatever produce you're growing. So for example, if you're growing tomatoes, there's probably a nutrient ratio for your nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium that you can buy off the shelf for hydroponic systems that will allow you to allow your plants to thrive in a hydroponic system. So you don't need fish, but basically you're talking, without the fish, you're talking about a purely hydroponic system. I see a question down there. It says, do aquaponics smell? Actually, that's a good question. So does aquaponics smell? Yes, aquaponics has a very earthy smell to it if it's going correctly. Of course, if a fish dies, it's not going to smell good. But smell can tell you a lot about what's going on in the system and help you be proactive with what's going on. So, and if you notice bubbles in the system, you might know that your pH is off. So yes, smells can help you identify issues, but generally an aquaponic system does not smell or does not have a bad smell to it.
And I might add also with the hoop house that you do have to have some type of irrigation system for that hoop house. Some people use some type of hydroponics or aquaponic system. Some just use straight water. Well, it'd be more of a very primitive hydroponic system where you basically run your water through drip lines and you filter it out and you add nutrients and stuff that you add to your product through the lines and stuff. So all of these will require some type of irrigation system to make sure that they run and produce what you need them to do.
Well, I would like to ask a question here. Since
Go ahead.
I think Gabriel was talking about converting a chicken house or an animal production setting to, how would that work and how expensive would it be?
So when I envision something like that working, basically I would, if it's a broiler house, you're going to have fans, you're going to have heaters already in there. Depending on the working order, that might be an expense to get those up and running. But basically, you can grow your fish in that area. You can have a bunch of, say, swimming pool sized tanks in that broiler house. You might want to insulate the tanks, like I was saying earlier, to keep the heat in the tanks. And then if you wanted to, you can grow plants inside with artificial lighting. If you want to do that with, say, LED lighting inside that same building, or you can have an adjacent greenhouse that runs the length of your broiler house where you pump your water to the plants and then it comes back into the broiler house as a closed loop system. Either way would work. I prefer to use natural sunlight. It's much cheaper, it's free. And then maybe have supplemental lighting in your greenhouse. So I always try to opt for some sort of greenhouse type setup. But there's a lot of successful or growing systems that are all indoors. So that's how I would see it. I don't know if I answered your question, Betty, but feel free to follow up if I haven't.
Yeah, no, that's good information. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
next question. What is the starting price for aquaponics?
Unfortunately, I can't answer that with a definitive answer because, so for example, I don't know if you saw one of my slides. I had a small beta fish in a probably a 2-gallon tank with some kind of grass growing on the top. That would be considered aquaponics. That might cost you $50 to buy as a kit. You might be able to build a much bigger system with recycled pieces and parts. Say, for example, someone wanted to discard their baby pool and you wanted to use that as a converted aquaponics system as a tank. You certainly could do that. So it really depends on if you're just doing it as a hobbyist and you just want to use recycled pieces and parts, and that's what a lot of people do. I highly recommend you go out and you Google or you just research backyard aquaponics. There's a ton of information and resources out there for you. When you start talking commercial, then it's the price tag starts going up, because you're going to want, to have high end. You're talking about higher volume, and you're going to want to have higher type equipment for that type of a system. So unfortunately, I can't tell you exactly how much it costs. It just depends on how big you want to go. Yeah, basically size would determine that.
Well, I think this has been a great session. Thank you, John and Gabriel,